JJ, you had mentioned before the Denver game, you had told Luka you wanted to get to a blackout moment, and just ahead of a game like tonight, it must be somewhat emotional. What's the message to him, if any?
Yeah, I think with him, he's at his best when he has that balance of joy and playfulness and that killer mentality, and just perfectly living in the moment of competition. And he'll find that tonight.
Mavs have had 4 games now, essentially without a big or without their top 3 bigs, but still been pretty good and competitive. What have you seen from them, and what kind of different game plan might it call for?
Yeah, I mean they're going to switch everything when they're small. They're disruptive on that end. They're going to crash. Kyrie and Spencer are going to play ISO. There are a few other guys that play ISO too, but we just have to win the possession battle, and we have to do a good job knowing who we're helping off of.
JJ, it's the Lakers, so a lot of these regular season matchups are going to have a big game feel. But how do you think it can help your group, because they're still relatively new, approach these big games together? Denver obviously was one tonight with all the elements in play, and kind of help your team come together with the hope of doing some stuff, making some noise in the playoffs.
We were just talking about this back in the coaches' locker room. I think rather than viewing this stretch as a negative, view it as a positive. It's one of the messages we had yesterday to the group. It's an opportunity to obviously get better, but to develop a real mental toughness and a real hardened mentality around competition, because every game is tough and every game is important.
JJ, we asked you yesterday about Max, but AD's not playing tonight, but he's here. You didn't have much of a relationship, and my understanding was before you got this job. What was it like working with him? What were your overall takeaways of your experience with Anthony Davis, and I guess the bittersweet feelings of like him being the cost of all of this?
Yeah, I'll start with just the fact that I miss being around him every day. He's a fantastic human being, wonderful teammate. For a guy who's a superstar, who's been in the Olympics and won the finals, been all NBA, probably had a decent amount of skepticism with a coach who's never coached before, a former podcaster, if you will. For him to just accept me and be open to a relationship and to coaching was big time. Speaks a lot to who he is as a person, and certainly miss him as a player, but certain inside jokes we had, he's just a pleasure to be around every day.
Coach, are you at all concerned about your team being overly emotional for this evening?
Sure.
Hey JJ, just as a follow-up to Dan's question, I'm just curious if you got a chance to say hi to AD tonight.
No.
JJ, to your left here. Obviously, as a first-year head coach, you have a responsibility for analytics, coming up with a game plan. How much of what you do is emotion to make sure an athlete is properly emotionally ready? And I ask because it seemed like you gave Luka an emotional charge in Denver.
You don't do it every game. I knew before I took this job that coaching was more than drawing up plays on a whiteboard. I'm not an idiot, so I knew what this was, and certainly have to be able to do that, but you have to coach people and build relationships with people and understand the nuances of people every single day, and that's the challenge of coaching. That is the challenge of coaching.
Hey, JJ. LeBron's LeBron, but as far as the rest of the group, in what ways have you seen Luka's presence elevate everyone else so far?
I just think it's the ease with which you get to play with him. He can control a game. He can make shots easier for everyone. He's easy to be around. I lived it for a very short period of time, but great teammate when I was with him, and I think that's it. There's certainly the element of like, well, he's going to dominate the ball, but yeah, he dominates the ball and then he makes everybody else better. So I don't look at that as a problem.
JJ, coming off the offensive success that you guys had in Denver, what are you looking to build off of in terms of just like either the way the offense was flowing? You mentioned featuring Luka more as kind of the primary ball handler, but like what are you looking to continue to stack on from that one?
I mean, very, very different game, very different defensive strategies in this game that we're going to face, and they're going to mix in a lot of different coverages and a lot of different looks for us. And frankly, we expect them to mix in a lot of different stuff for Luka. So again, this is one of those games where you just kind of have to be ready for anything. We prepared our guys over the last 2 days, and then we'll have to see how it plays out in game and make adjustments from there.
Kind of a bigger picture question on the offense. We've talked about the higher rate of threes you guys have been taking since acquiring Luka. You guys had certain emphasis coming into the season before the trade. Have those emphasis remained the same even after the trade in terms of the shot quality, the kind of shots you're taking, where they're coming from, even though the process may be different compared to October, November?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the things we're emphasizing have not changed. We still want to look for throw-aheads, throw-acrosses. We want to create mismatches in transition. That doesn't mean we want to play reckless in transition, but by creating early mismatches, you can play at an advantage. And so everything that we try to do offensively is to try to create an advantage. And having someone like Luka on your team, he's an advantage created naturally. And out of that, you talk about taking catch and shoot threes, attacking the paint, crashing the glass, sort of limiting your non-paint twos. All of that stuff is the same you do with Luka.
JJ, you and Luke obviously clicked during your short time together as teammates, have remained friends over the years. How do you anticipate, or how have you seen the relationship kind of go from buddies to the player-coach dynamic?
Yeah, similar to the answer I gave around AD, I've always enjoyed being around Luka. There was you guys brought up some clip of me smiling and looking at him on the bench. It's because he said something dumb. It wasn't because I thought that I get to coach Luka in the middle of the game. No, he said something dumb. But that's how he makes me feel. I mean, that's how he's always made me feel. He gives off a certain level of joy, and I feel that joy, and it gives me joy. That's just how it's always been with Luka, whether that's been as a teammate, when we've seen each other at games that I've attended or called or had him on the podcast. And so different as a coach. I think where him and I communicated the very first day he got to LA was just like, are you comfortable being coached with honesty? And he said, yes. Are you comfortable being coached with direct communication? He said, yes, that's what I want. And I said, okay, great. And you and I are going to be good. And it has been.
Hey, JJ, with all the success that you already have, and when we see afterwards or hear the quotes, the chats that you have with the team, it always seems like you find the right words. How do you prepare yourself to this kind of a game? So how do you deal with that?
Well, first of all, I wouldn't say I as a coach, I've had a lot of success. I'm very new at this, and hopefully in 5 years, 8 years, I can look back and say, okay, I've done some things as a coach. In terms of just messaging, some of that is very instinctual. Some of that is reflective, and sometimes how I want to push or how I want to step back with the group requires a little bit of thought with our coaching staff as well. Again, we have 17 people on our coaching staff, including our coaching associates, and I touch every guy every day, but those guys also touch a bunch of different players every day. And so it's important to know exactly what's going on with the group and what they're going through and what they're feeling. You know, in my preparation to coach, I spent a lot of time talking to other coaches, and a number of them were very good to me, just in terms of giving me some advice and whatnot. And spent about 30 minutes with Spo over All-Star break last year, and we were talking about different things, and he just kept repeating, like, a lot of this is an art, not science. So some of it is feel, and frankly, there's been a couple times where I haven't pushed and it hasn't worked out, and there's been a couple times where I pushed and it hasn't worked out. So you're never going to be perfect with that. I think you ultimately just have to trust your instinct.
Thanks, Coach.